Hi everyone, my name is Donnie Lowy from Closeoutexplosion.com. Hope you're doing well today. Today I'd like to discuss with you how you can flip pallets of closeout merchandise. A pallet of closeout merchandise is a pallet, it's a lot basically, that's going to consist either of an assortment of a lot of different merchandise, or it could be an assortment or a large quantity of a single item or of a few different items. So for instance, let's say you get a closeout pallet of brand name dresses. You can either have a very wide variety of different dresses, different brand styles, colors, and sizes. Or if you get that pallet, for instance, directly from a brand, let's say you were to contact Calvin Klein or Tahari and you were able to buy a pallet of dresses from them, you might only get one or two different styles of dresses in that pallet. So whenever you buy a closeout pallet, you have to be aware of what it is that you're buying, and of course that's going to also give you an indication of how you're going to sell it and who you're going to sell it to. What I would always recommend when you deal with closeout pallets, try to have potential customers lined up, and even better, if you can have actual customers who bought from you before and you know they're interested in those pallets, that's going to really help you flip those pallets. Now, when you buy those pallets, you have two different ways of buying those pallets. You can buy the pallets either directly from a source, which is great, but when you buy directly from the source, you're going to have to take whatever they give you. So if you're buying a pallet of dresses directly from a department store, you're going to get all the different types of dresses that that department store carries, or I should say you're going to get all the different types of dresses that that department store wants to close out. If you buy the pallet of dresses or you buy an assortment of dresses from a middleman, let's say from a wholesaler like myself who's bought that pallet of dresses from the department store, you're going to have an advantage that you can then contact a wholesaler, whether it's me or a different wholesaler, and say, look, I don't need an entire pallet, or can you make me a pallet specifically of office dresses? Can you make me a pallet specifically of evening dresses? What the wholesaler will do then is open up the pallets of dresses that he or she receives from the department store and will make a pallet for you. So there's an advantage to buying directly from the source, and there's an advantage to buying from a wholesaler that you have a good relationship with. Now, one thing that you should keep in mind is that sometimes you just might not be able to deal directly with the source because they can have an exclusive arrangement with a wholesaler, or the source itself is going to require you to buy a very large quantity. So sometimes by default, you're going to have to deal with a middleman until you move up in the chain, and then you can buy directly from the source. All right, so let's now move on and how to actually flip those pallets. So there's a few ways to do it. One very good way to flip a pallet, and you might be surprised by this, is by listing the pallet on eBay. I say it's a good way because you're marketing that pallet to hundreds of thousands of buyers. And here's the thing. Most people, or I should say many people, assume that eBay is a place where either consumers are selling their own merchandise, meaning their used items or new items to other consumers, or their business is selling directly to consumers. But eBay is also a very large business-to-business marketplace, meaning that there are plenty of businesses that are buying merchandise and selling to other businesses through eBay. I've seen some really good wholesale closeout deals on eBay, and I've actually looked up some sellers on eBay who sell on a wholesale basis, and they have a good feedback rating. To me, that means that there are many wholesale or business-to-business transactions that are taking place on eBay. So you could go ahead and you could list your pallet on eBay. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it, which is definitely worth exploring, is setting up a Facebook group for wholesale buyers. Once you set up that group, you don't want to spam the group, but you want to let the group also know what it is that you do. You want to show the group the different closeouts you have, including the closeout pallets. You might even decide to set up a Facebook group specifically for the buying and selling of closeout pallets. Another way to flip a pallet is by calling wholesalers. You can email them, you can look up these wholesalers online, you could go to different search engines such as wholesalecentral.com, closeoutcentral.com, top10wholesale.com. That's another search engine, and I'm sure there are many other search engines that I either am not aware of, or for instance, you can advertise on search engines like manta.com. But the key is you want to get a list of wholesalers, call them up, offer them the pallets. Now, wholesalers are going to pay you a lower price than retailers might pay you, but the advantage is that they can make a quick decision because they need a lot of merchandise because they're selling on a wholesale basis, and they're active buyers. Another way to flip a pallet is by contacting retailers. Retailers also need merchandise. They need merchandise on a regular basis. So if you find retailers that can buy a large quantity, maybe someone that has a retail chain, someone might have 2 or 3 stores, and a pallet of, for instance, of 500 dresses is something that they could easily handle. And I know I'm focusing on dresses because that's one of the products that I sell, but I mean, you could do this with any types of items. You're going to find a pallet of dollar store items. Let's say you contact a Chinese manufacturer and you buy a pallet of all assorted merchandise from that Chinese manufacturer, and now you sell it to the same types of stores that that Chinese manufacturer would generally sell to, but you're buying his closeout inventory. Now, whenever you buy closeout inventory, make sure that you are getting merchandise which there is a market for. You never want to buy outdated merchandise or merchandise which simply does not have a demand in the marketplace. What's another good way to flip a pallet? So I've mentioned you could sell it to wholesalers, to stores. Another way is you can go on liquidation.com and you can list your pallets for sale on liquidation.com. You might get a very low bid, so use that as a last resort because you're basically an auction site and you're going to have to pay a seller a commission. But the advantage is that your pallets are going to be exposed to potentially thousands and thousands of buyers. If you go to liquidation.com site, you can see how many registered buyers they have, and they definitely have a lot of buyers out there. So there are many ways to, to flip your pallets, and what I would recommend to is start out either by bringing in a pallet and let people come see the pallet and then tell them, look, they have to buy it, the whole pallet. They can't open, pick and pack. Or if you don't feel you have those customers yet, you might want to encourage people to still buy from you. So allow them not to buy the whole pallet, but buy maybe a third or half of the pallet. Now, one challenge is you don't want people to cherry pick the pallet because then they're going to buy the best stuff possible, and the other stuff you're going to have a hard time to sell. If you are going to allow people to pick and choose different items, then have in mind that you're going to have some inventory which is going to be left over, so you need to adjust your price accordingly so that you end up making money, even though not all of the merchandise is going to be sold. So if you have a pallet of 50 handbags and the handbags cost you $10 each, so you have to sell it, and you say you're going to let people pick and choose, and based on your experience, you'll be able to sell 80% of those handbags. So you're going to have to just figure out the price. So even though there's 20% of those handbags that you haven't sold, you're going to still make money. So in that case, if you're expecting not to sell 20% of your handbags, that means that your price for the other handbags has actually increased by 20%. But to focus on the flipping of the pallets, so another way to do it is you could set up your own website, set up a wholesale website where you sell specifically by the pallet. Then you can advertise your site through Google AdWords, through Facebook pay-per-click ads, and as people come to your site, they'll see the pallets for sale and you can sell them. You can actually even flip pallets without taking possession of them if you have a good relationship with the source and you know the pallets are going to be there while you try to sell them, and you feel confident that they are honest people and they're going to send the pallets to your customers and the pallets are going to be as described. Then you can actually start marketing those pallets, and when you make a sale, then you place the order with your source and have the pallets shipped either to your warehouse and then you can reship them to your customer, or you can have the pallets shipped directly to your customers. Now, if you are going to do pallets, try to get a manifest, and if you cannot get a manifest, then you need to have a very good grasp of what it is that it's, what are the contents of that pallet. So at that point, what you would do is you would actually go and visit the location where the pallet is held and inspect the pallet. I always recommend that if you can, go either visit yourself or send someone to check out the merchandise. I always recommend and I invite people to come to my warehouse, because if they come to my warehouse, they can make their own selection. They can see what I have available, and then they could buy and choose exactly what it is that they want. People are welcome to buy from me varieties, and many people buy from me assortments or buy, essentially by the pallet, where they're getting an assortment of different merchandise, and that is essentially what a pallet is in the closeout business, and that's fine also. But if you can, try to visit, see what people have available. And a very big advantage of visiting a warehouse, whether you visit my warehouse or you visit someone else's warehouse, is that you might see other merchandise available that you didn't consider buying. And now that you know that merchandise is out there, you can actually seize the opportunity, start marketing that merchandise, and go ahead and sell that merchandise. One important thing when you flip closeout pallets is start building an email list, build a contact list, so you don't just make one-time sales. Because here's what could happen. You can advertise that you have a pallet of brand name women's suits, and someone contacts you and they say, oh, they want to buy a pallet, they're really excited, and they say, oh, wait, you sell suits? Oh no, I'm actually looking for women's pants. So you take down the contact information of that prospective buyer, and it might be a week later, it could be a few months later, might even be a year later, but then you get a pallet of women's pants, and then you have a customer. You call that customer and you offer them the pants. So the key is to set yourself a network of both buyers and sellers, meaning sellers, people you can buy the pallets from, and buyers, people you can sell the pallets to. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. The next time you're in New York, please visit my website, my warehouse. My website is closeoutexplosion.com. Thank you so much. And for your information, I'm relatively close to New York Fashion District. So if you are going to make a trip to the New York Fashion District, you're welcome to come to my warehouse. All right. Have a great day.